The massive warship Terran Defiance hung in the darkness of space, its gray hull reflecting the distant light of an alien sun. Inside the bridge, General Eliza Reyes stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the stars through the large viewing window. Her face showed no fear, only calm determination. "Status report," she said, her voice firm but not harsh. Lieutenant Chen looked up from his screen. "The Imperial fleet is holding position at the edge of the system, General. No movement for the past 6 hours." Reyes nodded slightly. She was a woman of average height with steel gray hair cut short in military style. At 45 years old, she had spent most of her life defending humanity against threats. The scars on her right cheek and the slight mechanical whir of her left arm, a cybernetic replacement from a battle 5 years ago, told stories of her dedication. The planet below them, Helios 9, was the last human colony on the edge of known space. Once there had been 6 thriving human settlements in this sector. Now only Helios 9 remained free from Imperial control. "They're planning something," Reyes said quietly. "The Empire doesn't wait unless they think they have an advantage." Commander Jackson approached, holding a data tablet. "General, we've intercepted a transmission between Imperial ships. They're bringing in specialists." Reyes took the tablet, her eyes scanning the decoded message quickly. "3 hunters," she said, a small smile forming on her lips. "They think assassination will work where their fleets have failed." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Everyone knew the Empire's hunters, specialized killers from the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Empire, a coalition of 7 advanced alien races, had conquered hundreds of worlds using these elite assassins to remove troublesome leaders. "Should we increase security, General?" asked Security Chief Ortiz, her hand resting on her weapon. Reyes handed the tablet back to Jackson. "No, we'll maintain normal protocols." She turned to face her crew. "The Empire believes their hunters are unstoppable because they evolved as apex predators on their homeworlds. What they forget is that humans never had that luxury." The main communication screen flashed, indicating an incoming transmission. Lieutenant Chen looked to Reyes, who nodded permission to accept the call. The screen displayed an alien face, scaled and reptilian with 4 yellow eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Admiral Zikoreth of the Imperial Fleet, his translator converting the clicks and hisses of his native language into human speech. "General Reyes," the alien said, "the Imperial High Command offers you one final opportunity to surrender Helios 9. Your defense, while impressive, cannot succeed indefinitely." Reyes stepped forward, keeping her expression neutral. "Admiral Zikoreth, my answer remains unchanged. Helios 9 is sovereign human territory. We will not surrender." The alien's upper eyes narrowed. "Your stubbornness is regrettable, but not unexpected. The Empire has dispatched 3 of our finest hunters to resolve this situation. Their species have evolved as apex predators on worlds that would kill humans instantly. They have never failed a mission." Several crew members shifted uncomfortably at this news, but Reyes remained calm. "I appreciate the warning, Admiral. It shows a certain respect I didn't expect from the Empire." "It is not a warning," Zikoreth replied. "It is a courtesy. Your military career has earned you that much." Reyes allowed herself a small smile. "Then let me extend a courtesy in return. Tell your masters I've studied their so-called apex predators. I know their weaknesses better than they do. This will be over quickly." The alien's scales rippled in what might have been amusement. "Your confidence is misplaced, General. Prepare to receive the first hunter within 6 hours. The others will follow." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Commander Jackson approached Reyes. "General, those hunters are the Empire's most lethal assassins. The reports say the aquatic one, Kvex, has killed 17 planetary governors without a single failure." 18 attempts, actually, Reyes corrected. His first target survived for nearly 3 minutes. A colonial administrator who thought to use fire against a water-dwelling species. She walked to the central tactical display and activated it, bringing up a 3-dimensional map of the Terran Defiance. "The Empire keeps making the same mistake, Jackson. They see humans as primitive creatures who happen to develop space travel. What they don't understand she continued, marking specific points on the ship's schematic, is that humans evolved as prey animals on a world filled with predators. We survived not by being the strongest, but by outsmarting everything that tried to eat us. She tapped a command, highlighting the main shuttle bay. Have Engineering Team Alpha prepare Bay 3 according to Protocol XK. We'll receive our first guest there. Chief Engineer Patel spoke up from his station. The gravity modulation system is ready, General. We can increase localized gravity up to 30 times Earth standard in the designated area. Excellent. Reyes nodded. Kavex's species evolved in deep oceans under low-gravity conditions. His strength is impressive in normal gravity, but his skeleton wasn't designed to support his mass in high-G environments. Lieutenant Chen looked worried. General, how can you be so confident? The Empire has conquered half the galaxy with these hunters. Reyes turned to face her crew. Because, Lieutenant, before I joined the military, I was a xenobiologist specializing in evolutionary adaptation. I've spent my life studying how different species overcome environmental challenges. She gestured to the stars visible through the viewport. The Empire thinks humans are weak because we needed technology to compensate for our physical limitations. They don't understand that this is precisely what makes us dangerous. Her eyes moved from one crew member to another. We've never been the strongest or the fastest. We've never had natural weapons or armor. So we learned to analyze, adapt, and overcome. We studied our predators until we knew how to defeat them. Her voice grew stronger. The Empire sends killers. We send scientists who know how to fight. Commander Jackson straightened his uniform, confidence returning to his face. Orders, General? Prepare the ship according to the protocols we discussed, Reyes said, returning to the viewport. And send a message to Earth Command. Tell them Phase 1 is beginning. As the crew moved to their tasks with renewed purpose, Reyes studied the distant Imperial fleet. 3 small ships had detached from the main group and were moving toward the Terran Defiance. The hunters were coming. They still don't understand, she whispered to herself. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's that we've spent our entire evolutionary history learning how to defeat things bigger and stronger than ourselves. The first hunter's ship grew larger on the screen as it approached. Reyes smiled. The Empire was about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating humans. The shuttle bay of the Terran Defiance was unusually quiet. Most of the crew had been ordered to other parts of the ship, leaving the vast chamber empty except for a few technicians making final adjustments to hidden systems. The air felt heavy, with extra humidity, a courtesy that would soon prove ironic. General Reyes stood alone in the center of the bay, dressed in her standard gray uniform with no visible weapons. A small device on her wrist was her only equipment. The metal floor, beneath her feet, had been marked with thin, nearly invisible lines forming a large circle. All systems ready, General. Engineer Patel's voice came through her earpiece. Gravity modulators are functioning at full capacity. Good, Reyes replied quietly. Maintain communications blackout until my signal. In the observation room overlooking the shuttle bay, Commander Jackson watched nervously as the Imperial shuttle approached the Terran Defiance. The small craft was sleek and predatory, its black hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. I still don't like this, Security Chief Ortiz muttered beside him. The General should at least have a security team. Jackson shook his head. She was very clear about the protocol. Kavex needs to believe she's overconfident. Any security team would just be additional targets. The bay's external doors slid open, revealing the star-filled blackness of space beyond. The Imperial shuttle glided in silently, landing with precision on the designated pad. As the bay repressurized, Jackson's fingers tightened around the edge of the console. Be ready to flood the chamber with stun gas if anything goes wrong, he ordered. Inside the shuttle, Kivex prepared for his mission. He was massive even by the standards of his species, nearly 9 feet tall with blue-green scales covering a muscular frame. Gills lined the sides of his thick neck, pulsing gently in the humidified air. His webbed hands ended in retractable claws that could slice through steel. Kovacs had killed 17 planetary governors, 3 fleet admirals, and countless security personnel during his career. Humans were particularly easy targets, soft-skinned creatures with no natural defenses. This mission would be simple: eliminate General Reyes and her command staff, allowing the Empire to take Helios 9 with minimal casualties. The shuttle's hatch hissed open. Kvex emerged, his compound eyes scanning the shuttle bay. The emptiness surprised him. He had expected guards, defenses, some kind of resistance. Instead, he saw only a single human female standing calmly at the center of the bay. Kvex's translator device converted his watery speech into human language. "General Eliza Reyes," he gurgled. "The Empire has sentenced you to death." Reyes showed no fear, which irritated the hunter. Usually his targets displayed terror when they saw him. This human seemed almost amused. "Kvex of Hydra 6? She replied, evenly. "Your reputation precedes you. 18 successful assassinations, if I'm not mistaken." Kvex moved forward slowly, his massive feet making surprisingly little noise on the metal floor. "You honor me by counting. It will be 19 after today." "I expected an entire security team," Kvex added, his head tilting in curiosity. "Are humans so arrogant they send their leaders to die alone?" "That won't be necessary," Reyes responded, calmly. Something about her confidence made Kvex pause. In his experience, prey only showed such calm when they had a trap prepared. He stopped 20 feet from the human and extended his sensory gills to taste the air. Nothing unusual, just the expected sense of metal, machinery, and human. "You have studied my people," Kvex observed, noticing the increased humidity in the air. "A thoughtful gesture, though unnecessary. I can function perfectly well in dry environments." "I like to understand the species I interact with," Reyes replied. "Your kind evolved in the deep oceans of Hydra 6, under 3/4 of Earth's gravity. Your respiratory system is remarkably efficient, allowing you to process oxygen from both water and air." Kvex's patience ended. Humans always talk too. Much before dying, with a powerful thrust of his legs, he launched himself toward Reyes with incredible speed. His species could move at 70 miles in short bursts, faster than human reflexes could track. His toxic barbs extended from his forearms, ready to pierce the general's soft flesh. Reyes didn't attempt to dodge. Instead, as Kvex crossed the circle, marked on the floor, she simply pressed the small device on her wrist. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The gravity within the circle suddenly multiplied 30-fold. Kvex's 9-foot frame, which normally weighed around 500 pounds, instantly weighed over 7 tons. His forward momentum carried him another few feet before his legs shattered under the impossible weight. The hunter crashed to the deck with a sickening sound of breaking bones and tearing muscle. His internal organs, evolved for the gentle pressure of water, compressed painfully under their own newly multiplied mass. Even breathing became nearly impossible as his chest struggled against the crushing force. Despite the agony, Kvex fought to move, to reach the human standing just a few feet away. His species was known for its incredible durability and regenerative abilities, but those adaptations had limits that the Empire had never bothered to test. Reyes walked calmly around the edge of the gravity field, observing the immobilized hunter with clinical interest. "Your species evolved in an oceanic environment," she explained, her voice professional and detached. "Water's buoyancy countered your mass, allowing you to grow larger and stronger than would be possible in a terrestrial environment." She knelt beside Kvex, staying carefully outside the gravity field. "You've never experienced gravity beyond 1.2 Earth standard. We studied your physiological limits extensively. This gravity field is calibrated specifically for your biology. Strong, enough to incapacitate you without killing you immediately." Kvex tried to speak but could only produce a pained gurgle. One of his eyes had burst under the pressure, leaking fluid down his face. "The Empire believes that evolution as apex predators makes your kind invincible," Reyes continued. "What they don't understand is that specialization creates vulnerability. You're perfectly adapted to your homeworld, but that very adaptation becomes a weakness elsewhere." She stood, tapping her communication device. Security team to Shuttle Bay 3, prisoner ready for containment. As a medical team in powered exoskeletons entered the bay, Reyes looked down at Cavex one last time. Humanity survived on a world with dozens of apex predators by understanding their weaknesses. The Empire should have sent a negotiator, not a killer. In the observation room, the command crew watched in stunned silence as the medical team carefully extracted Cavex from the gravity field and secured him in a specialized containment unit. That was... Commander Jackson searched for words. Efficient. The general told us she had studied their biology, Lieutenant Chen said, but I never expected it to be so decisive. Security Chief Ortiz nodded slowly. 1 down, 2 to go. On the bridge, Reyes reviewed the data from Kivex's capture. The hunter would survive, though his injuries would take months to heal even with his species' regenerative abilities. The Empire would receive confirmation that their first assassin had failed, and would undoubtedly send the second. Prepare for Protocol XS, she ordered, bringing up the schematics for the ship's memorial garden. Our arachnoid friend will be more cautious after Kivex's failure. We need to be ready. As the crew moved to implement her orders, Reyes allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Empire was about to learn that humans didn't survive and thrive across the galaxy by accident. They did it by turning the strengths of their enemies into weaknesses, a lesson written in humanity's DNA from thousands of years as prey becoming predators. Imperial Admiral Zikorath stared at the report on his screen, his 4 yellow eyes blinking in disbelief. Cavex had failed, not just failed, but had been captured without even touching his target. The Empire's most effective aquatic hunter, defeated by a simple gravity trap. It appears General Reyes anticipated Kavex's biological weaknesses, said the science officer, a tall, thin alien with pale skin. The humans allowed him to board, then increased gravity 30-fold in a localized field. Zikorath hissed in frustration. Deploy Silith. She is more cautious by nature and will not fall for such an obvious trap. In the darkness of space, a small pod detached from the Imperial command ship. Unlike Kavex's shuttle, this pod was nearly invisible, its surface absorbing light and sensor signals. Inside, Silith prepared for her mission. She was an arachnoid tactician from the high-radiation death world Xerxes Prime. With 8 limbs, 8 compound eyes, and a body covered in dark exoskeleton, she resembled an earth spider grown to the size of a small car. Unlike Cavex, who relied on brute strength, Silith was a master of stealth and strategy. Her neurotoxin could kill through skin contact alone, and her compound eyes could see across the electromagnetic spectrum. Silith had conquered 32 worlds through superior strategy. She never attacked directly. That had been Kavex's mistake. The pod approached the Terran Defiance silently, using the ship's blind spots to avoid detection. When it reached the hull, magnetic clamps engaged soundlessly. Silith emerged, her exoskeleton protecting her from the vacuum of space. Using molecular cutting tools that made no sound, she sliced through the outer hull and entered the ship through a maintenance tunnel. Inside the Terran Defiance, General Reyes sat in her private quarters studying data from Kavex's capture. Security report, she said to her communication device. All systems normal, General, replied Security Chief Ortiz. No unusual activity detected. Reyes smiled slightly. And our surveillance on the outer hull? Exactly as you predicted, Ortiz answered. A stealth pod attached 7 minutes ago, Sector 12B. We're tracking movement through the maintenance tunnels. Good. Continue monitoring but do not engage. Implement Protocol XS. Understood, General. Reyes stood and straightened her uniform. It's time for my daily visit to the Memorial Garden. The Memorial Garden was a peaceful space at the heart of the Terran Defiance. Plants from Earth and human colony worlds grew in carefully arranged patterns around a small fountain. Holographic images of fallen soldiers and lost colonies floated among the greenery, a reminder of what they fought to protect. Reyes entered the garden alone, as she did at the same time each day cycle. It was a ritual the crew respected, the general's time for reflection. She walked to the fountain and sat on a stone bench, seemingly lost in thought. Above her, hidden in the ventilation system, Silith watched through her compound eyes. The arachnoid assassin had spent hours navigating through the ship's maintenance pathways, avoiding security sensors with practiced ease. She had studied the general's habits and knew this private ritual was the perfect opportunity. Silith analyzed the garden carefully. There were no obvious security measures, no signs of a trap like the one that had caught Kavex. The general appeared to be alone and unprotected. Too easy, perhaps? The assassin focused her compound eyes on Reyes, studying her heat signature, breathing pattern, and micro-movements. Something seemed wrong. The human was too still, her biorhythms too perfect. No living being sat that motionlessly, not even the most disciplined soldier. Too late, Silith realized her mistake. As she prepared to retreat, the garden's ventilation system activated with a soft hiss. A fine mist filled the air, not poison but something else. Silith felt her exoskeleton beginning to stiffen as the crystallizing agent made contact with its silicon components. Abandoning stealth, she burst from the ventilation shaft, 8 legs propelling her toward the sitting figure of General Reyes. If she could reach the human before the agent took full effect, her mission might still succeed. The hologram of Reyes flickered as Silith leaped through it, crashing onto the stone bench. Her joints were already locking up, her movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. She rolled to the ground, fighting to move as her exoskeleton hardened around her. From behind a hidden partition, the real General Reyes stepped forward, watching the immobilized hunter with clinical interest. Your species relies on detecting micro-movements and biochemical signals to predict enemy actions, she explained calmly. We created a perfect holographic still life. No human can sit that motionlessly. It was the perfect lure. Silith struggled to speak, her mandibles clicking frantically as the crystallizing agent completed its work. How did you know my approach? We detected your pod the moment it attached to our hull, Reyes replied, walking around the now frozen assassin. But unlike with Kavex, we wanted to see how you would approach the problem. Your strategy was impressive. Using the maintenance tunnels was clever. She knelt beside the immobilized arachnoid. The Empire knows our military capabilities, but never bothered to study our scientific ones. This compound was developed by our xenobiologists to preserve arachnid specimens for study. We simply modified it for your specific biology. Security Chief Ortiz entered with a team in protective suits. Containment unit is ready, General. Reyes nodded. Be careful with the toxin. Sacs near the mandibles. Even immobilized, her venom remains active. As the security team carefully moved Silith to a containment unit, Reyes returned to the bench, sitting where her hologram had been moments before. Your species considers itself superior due to your calculating minds, she said to the departing assassin, but you failed to consider that humans are pattern recognizers. We've spent our evolutionary history identifying threats before they strike. On the bridge, Commander Jackson received word of Silith's capture. 2 down, he announced to the crew. 1 to go. Lieutenant Chen looked up from her station. The Imperial fleet is pulling back to minimum weapons range. They seem hesitant. They should be, Jackson replied. Their 2 best hunters just failed against a single human. In her quarters, Reyes reviewed the security recordings of Silith's infiltration. The arachnoid had been impressively stealthy, avoiding most of the standard security systems. If not, for the special sensors Reyes had ordered installed on the hull, they might not have detected her until too late. Computer, begin preparation for Protocol XZ, she ordered. Our final guest will be the most challenging. The computer displayed information about Z-Kral, the Empire's 3rd and most dangerous hunter, an energy-based lifeform from the plasma, storms of Helios Prime. Unlike the previous hunters, Z-Kral could phase through solid matter, absorb energy weapons, and disrupt electronic systems with his mere presence. Reyes studied the data with a slight frown. This would require more than simple biological exploitation. It would require understanding of quantum physics and dimensional theory. "Send for Dr. Nakamura," she said to her communication device. "Tell him it's time to test his quantum stabilization platform." As she waited, Reyes looked at the starfield visible through her viewport. The Empire had sent their 3 best killers, each representing the apex of evolution on their respective worlds. What they failed to understand was that humanity had never been the apex of anything, and that was their greatest strength. "We survived by outwitting our predators," she whispered to herself. "Now we'll teach the galaxy that lesson." The Imperial command ship buzzed with nervous energy. 2 of their finest hunters had failed, captured by a human general who seemed to know their weaknesses before they even attacked. Admiral Zakorath paced the bridge, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. "This is unprecedented," he hissed to his officers. "No species has ever defeated both Kavex and Silith." The science officer displayed a hologram of their final hunter. "Zakral is different. He exists partially in another dimension. No physical trap can contain him." Zakorath stared at the shimmering, barely visible form in the hologram. "Deploy him immediately. This human general has become more than an obstacle. She is now a threat to Imperial prestige." Aboard the Terran Defiance, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Defeating 2 legendary Imperial assassins had boosted crew morale, but everyone knew the third would be the most dangerous. In a large circular chamber near the center of the ship, Chief Engineer Patel and Dr. Nakamura made final adjustments to a strange platform. The circular device took up most of the floor space, covered in complex patterns of metal and crystal that glowed with soft blue light. General Reyes entered, studying their work. "Is the quantum stabilization platform ready, Doctor?" Dr. Nakamura, an older man with careful hands and thoughtful eyes, nodded. "It's ready, General. The theory is sound, but remember, this has never been tested against an actual multidimensional being. Zakral's species exists partially in another dimension," Patel explained, pointing to the platform's components. "This device generates a quantum field that forces dimensional collapse, requiring all matter within its radius to exist entirely in our dimension." Reyes walked slowly around the platform. "And once fully materialized in our dimension, can he be contained?" "In theory, yes," Dr. Nakamura replied. "The platform includes an energy sink specifically calibrated to Zakral's unique frequency. It should drain his power once he's fully materialized." Commander Jackson's voice came through the communication system. "General, we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations near the ship's hull. It appears the third hunter has arrived." "Right on schedule," Reyes said. "Clear all personnel from sections A through F. Seal emergency bulkheads and implement electronic isolation protocols." She turned to Patel and Nakamura. "Take your positions in the observation room. No matter what happens, do not enter this chamber until I give the all-clear." As the 2 scientists left, Reyes took her position at the center of the quantum platform. Unlike with the previous hunters, there was no elaborate trap or holographic decoy. This confrontation would require perfect timing and direct engagement. Throughout the ship, crew members watched sensor readings as a strange energy pattern moved through the hull as if it were mist. Electronic systems flickered and failed in its wake, leaving darkness and silence. Zakral was unlike any living being most species had encountered. Born in the plasma storms of Helios Prime, his kind existed simultaneously in normal space and a higher dimension. To human eyes, he appeared as a shimmering distortion in the air, barely visible except for occasional flashes of energy that resembled lightning within fog. He passed through solid metal as if it weren't there, moving directly toward the ship's center where his sensors detected General Reyes. Unlike the previous hunters, Zakral had no physical limitations to exploit. He had destroyed entire battle fleets by phasing into their reactor cores and causing catastrophic overloads. In the circular chamber, Reyes stood calmly, watching as the air before her began to ripple and distort. Faint wisps of blue-white energy appeared swirling into a vaguely humanoid shape that floated several inches above the floor. "Zakral," Reyes greeted the entity. "The Empire sends its best." A voice like static electricity formed in the air around her. "General Reyes, Your reputation grows with each hunter you defeat. The Empire considers you a significant threat. High praise, Reyes replied, subtly shifting her weight to remain centered on the platform. Though I wonder why the Empire sends assassins rather than diplomats. The shimmering form drifted closer. The Empire does not negotiate with species that refuse to acknowledge its supremacy. Yet here you are, Reyes noted. Their third attempt after 2 failures. Zekral's form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Kavex and Silith were limited by their physical forms. I have no such restrictions. The entity moved forward, intending to pass through Reyes as he had passed through the ship's hull. Such contact would disrupt her nervous system instantly, causing painless but immediate death. As Zekral reached the edge of the platform, he felt something unexpected. Resistance. The quantum field activated, blue light flaring between the metal and crystal patterns on the floor. Your species exists partially in another dimension, Reyes stated matter-of-factly as Zekral struggled against the invisible force. But your physical form still interacts with normal matter under specific electromagnetic conditions. Zekral attempted to retreat but found himself trapped within the circular area. Impossible, his voice resonated throughout the chamber. No technology can contain my kind. Not contain, stabilize, Reyes corrected. We're not blocking you. We're forcing you to fully materialize in our dimension. This platform generates a quantum field that collapses dimensional wave functions. As she spoke, Zekral's form became more solid, shifting from a vague distortion to a translucent humanoid shape crackling with energy. For the first time in his existence, he was fully present in a single dimension. The sensation was disorienting, painful, like a being accustomed to 3 dimensions suddenly being flattened into 2. Zekral struggled, attempting to draw on the vast energy reserves that existed in his home dimension. Reyes calmly activated the final sequence. The platform began to glow more intensely, creating a circuit of energy that connected to Zekral's now visible form. Immediately, the entity felt his power beginning to drain. Your kind feeds on energy, Reyes explained as she safely stepped to the edge of the platform. We've simply reversed the process, creating an energy sink specifically calibrated to your unique frequency. Zekral's form flickered, weakening as the platform absorbed his energy. How could you know this? Reyes watched the entity with scientific interest. Humanity has been theorizing about higher dimensions since the 20th century. When we encountered the first of your kind 50 years ago, we began developing the mathematics needed to understand your existence. She circled the platform as Zekral continued to weaken. Quantum entanglement was child's play for our scientists by the time we reached the stars. The Empire believed your kind invincible because no one had discovered how to interact with your dimensional state. With a surge of effort, Zekral attempted one final attack, gathering his remaining energy into a concentrated burst. The chamber lights flickered as he released it toward Reyes, but the energy was immediately captured by the platform, further weakening him. The Empire underestimated you, Zekral admitted, his voice growing fainter as his form became more transparent. The Empire underestimates all species they consider primitive, Reyes replied. They judge by age, technology, physical strength, never by adaptability or innovation. As Zekral's energy levels decreased to non-threatening levels, Reyes activated her communication device. Security team to central chamber. Containment unit Zeta required. The entity that had destroyed fleets and phased through solid matter was now barely visible, a faint outline floating helplessly above the platform. What happens now? Zekral asked. You'll be placed in a specialized containment field and eventually returned to the Empire as part of a prisoner exchange, Reyes explained. We're not executioners, Zekral. We're survivors. As the security team entered with a glowing containment unit, Reyes looked at the defeated hunter with something close to respect. 3 hunters, 3 failures. Perhaps now the Empire will consider diplomacy. News of Zekral's defeat spread quickly through the Terran Defiance. Crew members who had once feared the legendary Imperial hunters now walked with new confidence. In the ship's mess hall, excited conversations buzzed around every table. "Did you hear how she trapped the energy being?" asked a young engineer. "Dr. Nakamura said the quantum platform actually forced it to exist in our dimension." "I still can't believe she took down all three without a scratch," replied a security officer. "The Empire thought these creatures were invincible." In the ship's medical bay, Dr. Lee oversaw the containment units holding the three captured hunters. Each required different environmental conditions. Kavex floated in a low-gravity liquid chamber as his bones slowly healed. Slith remained frozen in a crystalline state that would be gradually reversed. Zakral's translucent form wavered inside an energy-dampening field. "How are our guests doing, Doctor?" General Reyes asked as she entered the medical bay. Dr. Lee looked up from her monitors. "Stable, General. We're keeping them in medical comas to prevent escape attempts, but their vital signs are strong. They'll recover." Reyes nodded with satisfaction. "Good. I want them healthy when we return them to the Empire." "Return them?" Dr. Lee asked, surprised. "After they tried to kill you?" "They were soldiers following orders," Reyes replied, studying Kavex's massive form. "And they'll be more valuable as diplomatic bargaining chips than as prisoners." She turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Besides, returning them alive sends a stronger message than killing them ever could. It shows restraint and confidence, qualities the Empire respects." On the bridge, Commander Jackson and Lieutenant Chen monitored the Imperial fleet, which had maintained its distance since Zakral's capture. The mood was cautious but optimistic. "They haven't moved in 12 hours, Chen reported. "No communications, no sign of another attack." "They're reassessing," Jackson said. "The Empire just lost its 3 most effective assassins to a single human. That's never happened before." The communication screen activated, showing Admiral Zakoreth's reptilian face. "General Reyes, the Imperial Council requests your presence. For discussion, we offer safe passage for your shuttle." Jackson looked alarmed. "General, it could be a trap." Reyes considered for a moment. "Perhaps, or perhaps they're finally ready to negotiate." She turned to the screen. "Admiral, I accept your invitation with one condition. I will bring my own ship, the Terran Defiance." Zakoreth's upper eyes narrowed. "The Council meant you personally, General, not your warship." "My ship goes where I go," Reyes replied firmly. "Those are my terms. I'm sure the Council is eager to hear how 3 of their finest hunters were defeated by simple science." After a brief pause, the Admiral nodded reluctantly. "Agreed. You will receive coordinates shortly." The screen went dark. "Are you sure about this, General?" Jackson asked. "Taking our ship into the heart of the Imperial fleet?" Reyes smiled slightly. "The Empire respects strength, Commander. Arriving in anything less than our flagship would be seen as weakness." She turned to the navigation officer. "Prepare for departure as soon as we receive coordinates." As the crew prepared the ship, Reyes returned to her quarters. On her desk sat a small, worn book, actual paper, a rarity in the electronic age. She opened it carefully to a marked page. It was a personal journal, started during her days as a xenobiological researcher. One entry, written 20 years earlier, read, "Hypothesis: advanced species often evolve to dominate their environments, leading to biological specialization. This specialization creates advantages but also dependencies and vulnerabilities that can be exploited with the right approach." Reyes closed the book with a thoughtful expression. What had begun as academic research had become the foundation of humanity's defense strategy. Her theories, once dismissed by the scientific community as overly simplistic, had just defeated 3 of the Empire's most dangerous killers. Her communication device chimed. "General," said Commander Jackson's voice, "we've received the coordinates. The Imperial flagship is waiting at the edge of the system." "Set course, Commander," she replied, "and have our guests prepared for transfer. I think the Imperial Council will be eager to see them." The Terran Defiance moved smoothly through space, approaching the massive Imperial flagship, a vessel 5 times its size, surrounded by a dozen smaller warships. Against such firepower, the human vessel should have seemed insignificant. But, as they approached, The Imperial ships maintained a respectful distance. Admiral Zakoreth greeted Reyes in the flagship's docking bay, accompanied by a squad of guards who stood at a nervous distance. "The Council awaits you, General," Zakoreth said, his voice formal but with a new undertone of caution. "They have many questions about your methods." "I'm sure they do," Reyes replied calmly. The Imperial Council chamber was a vast room with a circular table at its center. 7 representatives, one from each of the Empire's dominant species, sat in ornate chairs designed for their different physiologies. They watched in silence as Reyes entered and took the simple seat provided for her. "General Eliza Reyes," began the council head, a crystalline entity whose voice resonated from within its transparent body. "You have accomplished what no other being has in the history of the Empire. You defeated our 3 finest hunters using methods our scientists claim should not have worked." Reyes met the council head's gaze steadily. "Your scientists made the same mistake your hunters did. They assumed biological superiority equates to invincibility." She gestured to the data tablet she had brought. "Before my military career, I was a xenobiological researcher specializing in evolutionary adaptation. Each of your hunters evolved as apex predators on their homeworlds, developing specialized traits that made them dominant in their environments." The council members exchanged glances as Reyes continued. "But specialization creates vulnerability. Kavex's aquatic physiology couldn't function in high gravity. Silith's exoskeleton was susceptible to specific chemical compounds. Zakral's multi-dimensional existence could be forced into a single-dimensional state. You studied their weaknesses," said a council member with feathered tentacles. "But how did you know which hunters we would send?" "I didn't," Reyes admitted. "I studied all potential Imperial assassins and prepared countermeasures for each. The 3 you sent happened to be the ones I predicted as most likely based on their past missions." The council head leaned forward slightly. "Why share this information with us now?" "Because the Empire needs to understand humanity better if we're to avoid unnecessary conflict," Reyes replied. "Humans evolved alongside predators that were stronger, faster and better armed than ourselves. We survived not by outfighting them but by outthinking them." She stood, addressing the entire council. "The Empire believed their predators invincible because they evolved at the top of their food chains. Humanity evolved as prey animals, constantly watching for threats, analyzing patterns, and developing tools to overcome our physical limitations." As Reyes spoke, data streamed into the council's displays. The successful defense of Helios 9 had inspired other human colonies to resist Imperial occupation. For the first time, the Galactic Empire faced a coordinated opposition exploiting the scientific knowledge Reyes had demonstrated. "The Empire has never faced a species that evolved by outwitting stronger predators," Reyes concluded. "You don't understand that humans don't fight fair. We fight smart." The council head's crystalline body shimmered with what might have been concern. "What do you propose, General Reyes?" "A renegotiation of humanity's status within Imperial space," she replied without hesitation. "Recognition of our sovereign territories and an end to forced annexation." As the council debated among themselves in hushed tones, Reyes knew that a turning point had been reached. The Empire had always expanded through intimidation and force, but for the first time they faced a species that thrived on overcoming impossible odds. Her communication device vibrated silently with a message from Earth Command. Phase 1 complete. Proceed with diplomatic initiative. Reyes allowed herself a small smile. The real victory wasn't defeating 3 hunters. It was forcing the Empire to see humans as equals rather than prey. 3 days after the meeting with the Imperial Council, General Reyes stood in her private quarters aboard the Terran Defiance, reviewing reports from across human space. The news was encouraging. Imperial forces had withdrawn from 3 contested colonies and communications channels between human outposts and Imperial authorities had been reopened. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Commander Jackson entered carrying a data tablet with an official Imperial seal. "General, we've received a formal communication from the Imperial Diplomatic Corps," he said, handing her the tablet. "They're requesting a meeting on neutral ground. The space station at Proxima Junction." Reyes scanned the message, her expression thoughtful. Not a demand, but a request. That's progress. Do you think it's sincere? Jackson asked. After centuries of conquest, the Empire suddenly wants to talk? Defeating their hunters was significant, Reyes replied, setting down the tablet. But what really got their attention was how we did it, by understanding and exploiting their biological weaknesses. The Empire now realizes we've likely developed countermeasures for all 7 of their dominant species. She turned to the viewport, watching the stars. And they're right. Earth Command has been implementing my research across the human fleet for years. The Empire finally understands that conquering humanity would cost them more than they're willing to pay. So we've won? Jackson asked, hope evident in his voice. Reyes shook her head slightly. We've earned a place at the table. That's not the same as winning, but it's a start. 2 weeks later, the space station at Proxima Junction bustled with activity. Normally a commercial hub where different species traded goods and information, it now served as neutral ground for the first official diplomatic talks between the Galactic Empire and the United Earth government. The human delegation, led by General Reyes and Ambassador Chen, entered the meeting chamber to find representatives from all 7 imperial species already seated around a large circular table. At the head sat a tall avian being with iridescent feathers and piercing gold eyes, High Chancellor Kira, the Empire's chief diplomat. General Reyes, Ambassador Chen, Kira greeted them with a formal bow. The Imperial Council extends its gratitude for your prompt response to our invitation. The United Earth government appreciates the opportunity for peaceful dialogue, Ambassador Chen replied, equally formal. As they took their seats, Reyes noticed that the Imperial representatives seemed unusually tense. Their body language, despite the differences in physiology, suggested caution and perhaps even a hint of fear. Kira spread his feathered hands in a gesture of openness. The Galactic Imperial Council extends an offer of armistice, he announced. We propose cessation of hostilities and recognition of human sovereignty over all currently held territories. Ambassador Chen maintained a neutral expression, but Reyes could see his surprise. This was more than they had expected to achieve. That's a significant change in position, Reyes observed. What prompted this generous offer? Kira's feathers ruffled slightly, a sign of discomfort. Analysis of your defensive strategies revealed concerning implications. You didn't just defeat our hunters. You had prepared specifically for each species' unique biology. Our intelligence suggests you have developed countermeasures for all 7 Imperial Dominion species. Reyes didn't confirm or deny this assertion. And the Council has concluded that the cost of continuing this conflict outweighs the strategic value of human territories, Kira continued. Additionally, he paused, clearly uncomfortable. Our xenopsychologists have analyzed your historical records. Humans appear to become more resourceful and united when threatened. Other species typically fracture under pressure. Yours coheres. Ambassador Chen leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, High Chancellor? A holographic display activated in the center of the table, showing a map of the galaxy with color-coded territories. Kira manipulated the display, highlighting a significant section of space. The Empire offers full diplomatic recognition of all human settled worlds and a non-aggression treaty lasting 50 standard years, he explained. We also propose open trade routes through Imperial space and cultural exchange programs. The human delegates exchanged glances. The offer was far more generous than they had anticipated. And what does the Empire request in return? Reyes asked. Suspecting there was more, Kira focused his golden eyes on her. Technical advisors. Specifically, we request you, General Reyes, to help modernize Imperial defensive doctrines. Reyes raised an eyebrow. You want me to teach Imperial forces how to fight like humans? We want you to teach us how to think like humans, Kira corrected. Your species has a unique perspective on survival that the Empire lacks. We have dominated through strength for so long that we've forgotten how to adapt. The negotiations continued for 3 days, with both sides refining the terms of what would become known as the Proxima Accords. When the final document was ready, representatives from both humanity and the Empire gathered in the station's grand hall for the formal signing ceremony. General Reyes, now appointed as humanity's special envoy to the Empire, stood before the assembled delegates. The moment felt surreal. Just weeks ago, she had been fighting for the survival of a single human colony. Now she was helping shape the future relationship between humanity and the largest political entity in known space. The Empire evolved. As conquerors, she addressed the gathered officials. Each of your species dominated your worlds before reaching the stars. Humanity never achieved that level of dominance on Earth. Instead, we learned adaptability, cooperation, and how to analyze threats from multiple perspectives. She activated a holographic display showing the capture of the 3 apex predators. The Imperial representatives watched with various expressions of amazement and discomfort as their finest hunters were defeated by seemingly simple countermeasures. Your hunters failed not because they lacked strength or skill, Reyes continued, but because the Empire has forgotten how to face challenges creatively. You've relied too long on overwhelming force rather than innovation. She turned to face the Imperial Council members. Humanity doesn't seek to conquer the Empire. We've never been conquerors. We've always been survivors. The question isn't whether we can defeat you, but what we can teach you about adaptation. The stars hold threats neither of us has encountered yet. We'll face them better together than as enemies. The Imperial head rose, a rare gesture of respect. The Empire has existed for 15 millennia. In all that time, we have never encountered a species that defeated our best warriors through intellect rather than strength. Perhaps you are right, General Reyes. Perhaps it is time the hunters learned from those who evolved watching for predators. As the ceremony concluded and the Proxima Accords were formally signed, Reyes sent a private message to Earth Command. Phase 1 complete. The Empire now sees humans as valuable allies rather than primitive threats. Negotiations for technological exchange begin tomorrow. Back on the Terran Defiance, Commander Jackson met her in the shuttle bay. Congratulations, General. They're calling you the architect of a new era in human-imperial relations. Reyes smiled slightly. What we achieved here isn't just about humanity's survival. It's about changing how the Empire sees the universe. For millennia, they've classified species as either predators or prey. We've shown them there's another category, the survivors, the adapters. As they walked through the corridors of the ship, crew members stood at attention, their faces showing pride and respect. The Terran Defiance would return to Earth for a refit before beginning its new mission, as an escort for scientific exchange vessels. The stars have never seen a species like humanity, Reyes said, looking through a viewport at the distant sun of Helios 9, the colony they had fought to protect. And they're finally beginning to understand why. In the medical bay, the 3 Imperial hunters had been carefully transferred to a specialized transport vessel, beginning their journey home. They would return to the Empire not as failures, but as the first to experience what many species would soon learn, that humanity's greatest weapon had never been technology or numbers or strength. It had always been our ability to study our predators until we knew how to defeat them. The end.